listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
What's it like to race cars, ski off mountains, jump out of planes, and live life on the edge? Join three of the hottest and most successful stuntmen in Hollywood as they spend the next hour with some of the coolest and most exciting personalities in the world. It's time for Hard Knocks. And now, here's our host, Rick Avery.
Oh, my mic's falling. There it is. Little tweakage. In the end, I think today's show is about what the human body can take, because our guest, who's going to be calling in momentarily, is Tyler Bratt, who literally tests his body by undertaking things such as going over huge waterfalls.
It's almost to the level of beyond the mental of it, because whatever consequences it is, but the physical is just extraordinary. But to get your mind to make your body do that.
Yeah, and the way he scouts these things and the abilities that he has, it's pretty amazing. He went off Alexandra Falls, which was at the time in 2007, 107 feet over these waterfalls in the Northwest Territories of Canada, which made it a world record. And since then, a Brazilian, I guess, named Pedro Oliveira ran 127 feet in Brazil, breaking that record. But then Tyler comes back and breaks it big. And we're not going to say how big he went over the falls till he gets on.
It's a doozy. I must say.
It's pretty major. You see this. Well, I'm not going to give it away.
No,
but for our guests, that I'd like you to go to look up Tyler Bratt. It's TYLER Look it up on the internet, and you can have that in the corner of your screen and looking at these waterfalls that this guy's gone over. It's just incredible what he's done. And he's just one of those carefree athletes that, like a surfer, just out there having a good time.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And the stuff they're doing now in those kayaks are just wickedly sick.
Yeah, apparently there's not a lot that scares this guy. He, in his interviews since then, it sounds like he's a pretty mellow thinking guy.
But I have a phone to answer.
That must be our guest.
Yeah. We are on. Hello.
Hello, this is Tyler Bratt. Is this Rick?
Tyler, it's Rick, and I have Brian here with me, and thanks so much. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from Hood River, Oregon at the moment, up here doing some kayaking right now.
Oh, of course you are. I just saw on Facebook that you just moved up there.
Yep, just moved to Oregon. That doesn't necessarily mean that I've got a house here yet. I've just got all my stuff within the state lines of Oregon.
Right.
So we'll see. Yeah, but this is a beautiful spot. Lots of rivers around here.
That's your life. Our rivers and tents. Who needs a house?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being this nomadic anyway, yeah, I should just keep the ball rolling.
Are you by one right now? Are you by a river right now?
I am. I'm looking at the Columbia River Gorge, and the Little White Salmon, one of the best runs in the nation, is just down the road. So after we get off the phone, I'm gonna head over there and do some paddling.
Oh man, that's awesome. Now, Tyler, listen, we've had a lot of major guests on here that do some major stuff, but I gotta tell you, if there was an award to give, I'd have to give it to you for the year. Yeah. It's what are you doing, dude? I mean, you're putting yourself up on top of the Empire State Building, which is a waterfall, and then jumping off. I mean, I know there's a lot more to it, but that is some crazy ass stuff.
Well, from the sounds of it, Rick, you know a lot about that, being a stuntman yourself. But
I know.
Yeah, it's. I've been kayaking my whole life. My dad got me started when I was 6 years old, and I've been very fortunate enough to have been able to spend a lot of time on the rivers and practice the sport professionally for about the last 10 years, actually. So it's kayaking is second nature to walking for me, and so Toulouse, although it was a big step up from what I had done before, it just I could see it and see the line and see that it was potentially runnable, and then put everything to the test and went for it, and it just went exactly as planned. I couldn't have been happier with the outcome.
We didn't say how high it was.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah, we haven't brought up Palouse yet. I actually introduced earlier before you came on the show Alexandra Falls, and then this Brazilian guy thinks he's hot. He's going to top you by only 20 feet or so. And then you came back and did Palouse, which we'll talk about in a minute. But essentially, are you at the point now on doing these falls where you think you're limited out on what the human body can take when it hits the bottom?
Yeah, I think we've kind of reached a point with waterfalls right now that, although I do think it is possible to go higher than this, I don't know, just because nothing happened to me on Palouse. I sprained my wrist slightly on it, so I think that the potential to go higher is there, but you're definitely taking a pretty big risk by doing it. So, I don't know if if I'm going to be running a waterfall higher than that, but when I ran Alexandra, I thought the same thing. So you never know.
Well, I got it all figured out for you. You can go higher. You just have to slow yourself down, right?
Right, exactly.
So we just need to put you just need a propeller on your kayak or some wings or a string. I don't know, something to slow you down, and then you can go off as high as you want.
Base jumping on the kayak.
Exactly. Well, maybe I'll save that one for you, Rick. Yeah. That might be your window into kayaking there.
I think that might one window. That's it. I go out it. So let's a lot of our guests, and I invited them to go on the internet, take a look at your video there of Palouse. Let's talk a little bit about that. How tall was that?
Palouse we had surveyed at 189.5 feet tall.
Holy cow!
That is tall, and that half foot might be the record right there. You never know. But I
guess so.
When we do movies and we set up for big stunts, we do a lot of surveying, we do a lot of rehearsals. And then we even go to the point of checking the bottom if we're going to go off something like this. You don't really get a chance to do a dress rehearsal on something like this, do you?
I guess doing something like this, there's no turning back once you go for it, and you can definitely check out the bottom, just by looking at it, seeing how the water reacts, seeing what's happening there at the base of the waterfall, and just getting a feel for the place in general, So we actually do our homework quite a bit before we go and do something like this, just, with any other stunt that you guys are familiar with, I'm sure. You want to eliminate as many variables as possible doing something like that. I think it's the only way that you can go out and do these things all the time and still be safe. People look at that and they think it's, some crazy act, some crazy stunt, and there's a lot of risk involved. And, in a lot of ways there are, but I think that people, don't realize that it's a very, very calculated risk, too, and that we're trying to do everything that we can to minimize the potential for injury out there.
Yeah, this is not a Yahoo off the waterfalls like Niagara Falls, some Jesu going off and saying, Yahoo, let's go. How do you know? Now, you talked about the bottom, which is a curiosity for me. Of course, you're not going to put divers under there, but who knows what's sticking up? But I guess because of your experience around waterfalls and kayaking, like you said, you can kind of read how deep how do you know how deep it is, even where you're going?
Well, Palouse has some really interesting history behind it. It was actually created by glacial lake floods hundreds of years ago, and so just that place in general is wild. You're driving through farmlands, and you're driving along, and you turn down a dirt road towards Palouse Falls, and then it just opens up into this huge chasm. There's the waterfall comes off and just pours into a great big gorge with just a giant plunge pool down there. So a river, many thousands of times the size of the Palouse River created that waterfall. So what you have is kind of an anomaly. You have this huge river drainage with this kind of, relatively smaller waterfall going off of it. And so just because of the history of that waterfall, you know that plunge pool is really scooped out, although, it's probably silted in since quite a bit. But just the size of that plunge pool, the way that the water is reacting at the bottom of the pool, the water goes down, and a really well-formed boil coming up, so you can tell the water's going deep and coming back up. And so doing something like that, the goal is actually to go as deep as possible, because that means that you're slowing down over a longer period of time.
Yes.
And that minimizes the impact. Obviously, your impact is your deceleration over a specific period of time. If you decelerate instantaneously, there's going to be a huge impact, whereas if you extend that impact over a longer period of time, it's going to be a lot less. So we, I was going to go, as deep as I possibly could on Palouse, and, everything worked out, and I think that pool below it is just, it's perfect. I don't think a waterfall that high could be run if everything wasn't just picture perfect, really.
Right. Now, how cold was that water?
The water, it was springtime, spring runoff. I was wearing a dry suit at the time, in case you did have problems at the bottom, need to spend some time in the water. I'm guessing it was probably, 45, 50 degree water, pretty cold.
Do you wear a life vest?
Oh yeah, wore a super good life jacket that I had strapped on exceptionally tight that day, and a dry suit that helps a lot. Of course, your helmet, and that's it. I didn't have any special gear that I wouldn't have worn otherwise going kayaking, except for a device I made that goes around my cockpit rim on the outside of my spray skirt, which keeps the water out of my boat.
Yes.
And so this device was used to clamp around the outside of my spray skirt so that when I impacted at the bottom, it didn't get blown off. That's a problem that we have sometimes during these big waterfalls, is our spray skirts will implode or explode, detach from the kayak, and then the boat fills with water. And number one, you stand the chance of just being held under for a very long time. You're kind of depending upon the buoyancy of you and your kayak to bring you to the surface.
Yes.
Number two, it doesn't count. The way that the records work in kayaking, you have to stick it for the record to count. So I was going all in on that one. I was definitely planning on staying in my boat.
Ah, Roger.
Now, at some point when you're going over on the water, as much as you prepare for everything, is there at some point where you're just at the mercy of what the water's doing, and that's going to prevent you from going straight in or however you want to land?
Right. Well, with running waterfalls, your control is right pretty much at the top of it. That's when you can dictate exactly where you're at in relationship to the waterfall, and you put yourself on the best flow possible going down it. And then it's a lot like free falling, jumping off a cliff, for instance. And although your feet aren't on the ground, you're still doing a lot to ensure that you don't end up belly flopping off of that jump. And so kind of the art and the technique of running waterfalls is being able to control your boat angle in the air. Because if something happens, if you land flat or you go over vertical, then things are going to go wrong. You're going to it essentially be like belly flopping off of a jump instead of penciling in. That's when you're going to end up getting hurt. So running a waterfall like that, you got to be very confident that you're going to be able to run it well and stick the landing.
Now, Alexandra Falls was about a little over 100 feet, and this was double that. Did you, prior to doing Alexandra Falls, did you do smaller falls before those?
Yeah, so prior to Alexandra Falls, and Alexandra was kind of at a wild time. This chap by the name of Theo Berman ran a waterfall back in 1999 that was 98 feet tall. And that record had stood for, almost a decade up to the point of Alexandra.
Yes.
And so building up to Alexandra, I'd run quite a few bigger waterfalls, 70, 80, pushing 90 feet tall. And so I was confident in my ability of running waterfalls. We showed up to Alexandra, and I was just up there. We were going to go up and do the Slave River in the Northwest Territories. We weren't even thinking about running Alexander, and we saw that waterfall, and it was, again, just a picture-perfect waterfall. It looked really good. There was, it's a very different style waterfall than Palouse, but we decided to go for it, and my friend Rush and I both ran it. Rush had a really scary incident off of it where he got held under, pushed into the cave behind the waterfall, got circulated into the waterfall a few times, going back down again, and then ended up popping up, a couple minutes after he went over the lip of the waterfall. Wow. And so that was one of his closest calls, but I ran it first and had a great line, surfaced right away, straight after the, just landed, surfaced within seconds, and paddled away from it. So that was a really good experience for me, and kind of boosted my confidence a little bit in waterfall running.
Yeah, and then you get to Palouse, which is twice the distance for the drop. I want to kind of hop on the back of the kayak with you. No, not for real, not for real. And I'm sure.
Tandem.
Yeah. When you do something like this, that only takes a few seconds really to get down to the bottom, and then you've got this great video, and people want to talk to you about it, and you end up telling the story 6 million times. So please forgive us for that.
It's a 6 million and one.
6 million and one. But I kind of, when I have a guest like this on, I kind of want to sit in your seat with you. So when you're coming down just before, how far upriver do you get in?
So we put in, probably, I don't know, a third of the mile upstream of the waterfall. It's kind of a wild place, just with the way the river has kind of cut into the land out there and the gorge that forms. So the closest point of entry was about a third of a mile upstream and above a pretty good-sized rapid that leads straight up to the lip of the waterfall. So before running the waterfall even, we had to navigate down to it. Again, my friend Rush was with me. He wasn't planning on running the waterfall, but was heading over to the other side of the river to do some filming.
Yes.
And that was the only way that he could get over to the other side of the river as well. So we geared up about a third of a mile upstream of the waterfall. It was in a state park, and we've had various degrees of success with running waterfalls in state parks. Sometimes they're not too happy about it, but
I see that.
They definitely weren't expecting us to run Palouse that day, so we kind of were discreet about hiking up, getting in our boats, going down there, ran that top rapid fine, and then we hopped out to do a second scout from the other side of the waterfall. You really want to look at these things from all angles before you run them, and so we paddled down, hopped out on river left, and then proceeded with scouting the waterfall again.
Now, for our guests, for our listeners who have never been around rapids or waterfalls of this size, there's certainly the energy that's in the air that, Tyler, you're probably used to and I'm sure appreciate. But for someone who just walks up to a rapids for the first time, just the sound and energy in the mountains of that is overwhelming, isn't it?
Oh, your senses are just completely filled with that. The rumbling of the waterfall, I mean, it's to the point where you feel like the rocks are almost shaking under your feet. Obviously they aren't, but just the sound and the energy in the air and how that sound is compounded by just the gorge and those canyon walls is really wild. And obviously being in a place like that, standing 200 feet up off of the deck, looking at a waterfall like that, and all of your senses firing it, especially right before you're thinking about paddling off of it. It's that's one of the crux points in the whole operation. I mean, half of kayaking is the actual act of doing it, and the other half of it is just being in the mind space necessary to do something like that. You got to be calm and collected and able to react to what's going on if you're going to stick something like that. So kind of trying to control that adrenaline and just that feeling of excitement and exhilaration being there is half the battle.
So we're in the water now, and I've got all this energy going on, and I'm shaking, and it's like you said, it feels like the rocks are shaking underneath you. And now we're approaching the lip. What is, I mean, there's a point where it's a go, no go. You've now committed. What is Tyler thinking in his head? Is it like, oh shit, or I got to go? What are you thinking?
Well, and Toulouse is an interesting waterfall as well, because that rapid comes into the top, and then there's this kind of a small, calm pool right at the lip of it. So you're sitting there, floating just on flat water right above it, and, you paddle over, you're lining up, and those 3 or 4 seconds right before you drop over the lip, paddling up to it, that is one of the most surreal experiences of the whole operation, because you're sitting there, really focused on running this waterfall, but your mind does wander, and obviously the thoughts go through your head that, am I making the right decision here? Is this really a good idea?
Right. It's saying to you, what the fuck am I doing? Right? Basically.
Yeah. Well, so that thought enters your head. You definitely go, what the fuck am I doing here? But that's not those aren't the thoughts that you want to be going through your head when you're running it, because your reaction is going to be so much different. You're going to be in the back seat going like, whoa, kind of out of control running it if you're not 100% focused on what's going on. So, kind of the last thoughts that I remember going through my head were just, some deep down thoughts of encouragement, just saying, all right, here we go, we got this, this is a really stickable waterfall, and, and just focusing on the most positive results. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is if you go over that with a negative mindset, then I think it compounds the potential greatly for bad things to happen. Whereas if you go over with the mindset that, look, this is happening, I got this, I'm going to run this and stick it, and you're positive about the outcome being positive, then it, I can't say enough of what that right there has done for me in running waterfalls, and just seeing, friends of mine go out that don't necessarily have the most positive attitudes or are apprehensive about running things. I mean, that is when that's when stuff starts going wrong. So,
right. Well, that's what makes the elite,
a lot of visualizing it, a lot of seeing yourself running the perfect line. If you can't see yourself running the perfect line, if you can't get that feeling before you even step into your kayak, then I wouldn't ever run a waterfall unless I had that feeling of confidence and positivity about running it.
Right. So there's a lot of visualization that goes on, and let me just back up now. I'm sitting on the back of your kayak with you. We got in this cold water. I'm feeling the energy you're talking about. We come up to this calm pool, and I whisper in your ear, Tyler, are you sure you want to do this? And Tyler says, yes, I'm sure, and don't give me any negative thought. Rick, I'm going. And I'm saying, okay, if you're going, I'm going. Let's visualize. We do this. You get to the lip. What happens then?
And so we get to the lip about a foot off of the right wall, right on the seam line that has a setup to run the perfect line down the waterfall. That right there is one of the crux points of that whole descent. To our left, there's a big hump that pitches vertical straight away. To our right, the water hits a shelf and kicks off. There's just a kicker just going off into space to our right. And we are on line to thread the needle right between those two obstacles straight into the gut of the waterfall. And it happens fast, man. We are there at the lip of it, lined up, and then a feeling of acceleration like we've never felt before, just fast. One little dip and rise in the lip, which is a really crazy feeling, to drop to free fall and then feel a hump come up under your boat, and then immediately get sent into free fall. And then at free fall, at that point is another crux reaction. You got to feel how your boat has reacted to that lip and what you need to do to keep it straight. And then immediately after that, once I started reaching into my tuck, that's when I had a really good feeling. I felt very, very happy with the angle that my boat was at when I was out in the waterfall, the fact that I was totally immersed and surrounded by the waterfall. Everything at that point was going great. And so instead of, having the feeling of, oh shit, or, here we go, that kind of thing, it was like, all right, we got this, everything is happening right.
Yes.
And then at that point, you're just tucked forward and we're hanging out free falling.
Now, do you see, it looked like in the video of it that you're now submerged in this waterfall, that can you see when the water's coming up or when you're going to impact, or are you just kind of now braced for it?
Yeah, and so at that point, you're in the crash position, basically, tucked all the way forward onto the front of your deck, paddle off to the side so it doesn't come across your body. And then at that point, you're in the waterfall. You don't have any visual going on except for the white all around you, and then you're just waiting for the impact. I mean, a classic mistake is that you're going to be free falling for a long time. It took about 3.5 seconds to get to the bottom of that waterfall, and it is literally the longest 3.5 seconds you'll ever live. And so,
why is that? Why is
you have time to think?
Yeah, I know, but time slows down for you, and why did that slow down for you?
It's just it is just such a wild sensation. I mean, I think that anybody can identify with that has, fallen off of a waterfall and or jumped off of a cliff or anything. It's time slows down in the space of seconds. From now until now, you're free falling and just amongst that waterfall, and I mean, and it's wild, and that is a really interesting thing, how long it actually does take for you to hit the bottom. But a classic mistake is getting that feeling that, oh shit, I'm falling for too long, or this is longer than I expected to be falling, and come out of your tuck, or do the oh shit thing where you break from your position, and that's kind of the worst thing that you could possibly do. So in doing that, you just have to commit to your tuck. You got to be in that crash position and just ride that all the way to the bottom.
Tyler, would you stay with us for 60 seconds? We're going to break away for a commercial, and we're going to come back and talk about that landing.
Yeah, sounds good, Rick.
Thanks, buddy.
Welcome back to Hardknocks.
We are here with Tyler Bradt, and
Bailey.
And Bailey, yeah, and we have Tyler's been gracious enough to have me on his kayak going over this waterfall with him. I've been sitting on his shoulders and getting a feeling of what it's like to go over 189 feet?
186, I
Yep,
think.
189 and a half.
Oh,
189 and a half feet, and we got to the point where it's impact time. And what was that like for you, Tyler?
So the impact was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was a really, really heavy hit. And so immediately, you're going from free fall and then into just a very extreme impact. And, kind of the running joke with doing something like this is that it's all good until you hit the bottom. That's the only real hard part of any of this stuff. So,
Yeah.
And hitting the bottom was definitely hard. It knocked the wind out of me. It dazed me. It jackknifed me out of my tuck. I hit the back deck of the kayak. My paddle snapped. I was able to still be holding on to a piece of it with my left hand. And so I just took that initial really heavy impact, and then, you're in the water and you're surfacing, and, and your mind's just going, all right, what's going on here? What's wrong? Is anything broken? I didn't think it was out of question for for me to break a couple ribs doing something like that. I didn't think anything else was going to happen. Obviously, your worst nightmare is a back injury off something like that. But, landing it right, landing it like I did, I wasn't necessarily worried about that. But, you are just so adrenalinized and so, and just dazed from that impact in general. So I was just hanging out in my boat, waiting to surface, felt my boat surface, and then remember it just being the most concentrated effort of my life to use that broken piece of the paddle, roll my kayak up, and then I was just in the midst of the waterfall. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anybody. It was just this kind of very luminant white mist all around me, and I just sat there drifting, just kind of doing the self-assessment, seeing what was wrong, and just, still not able to breathe. The wind was totally knocked out of me, but at that point, you're also just totally exhilarated. You're that adrenaline rush was unlike anything you'd ever felt, that free fall experience, and then just that really surreal moment of being able to sit there still without any visual because of all the mist of the waterfall around you. So yes. I just sat there drifting, gathering myself, and I drifted all the way along the river left side of the waterfall. I was thinking I was going to be coming out on the right side of the waterfall, but the boil actually shot me all the way to the left side of the waterfall, and I drifted all the way along. The mist cleared. I could see what was going on, but I was in the shadow of the cliff, and my safety kayakers at the bottom were still paddling up towards the waterfall, couldn't see me. And some people up way high on the cliff saw me, some other folks that I had up there shooting and filming, and just some tourists that were there watching and whatnot. And so I was sitting there floating, my safety kayak was in the water, and they were hearing these yells, especially from Rush, who was right above them on River Left, and they thought that it was actually me in there behind the waterfall somewhere letting out those yells. And so it was, quite a few scary moments for them as they were sitting there, paddling up as close as they could get to the waterfall, trying to see what's going on. And I couldn't let out a yell to let them know I was okay because the wind was just still knocked out of me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't make a noise. And slowly that went away, and I was able to let out a little whoop, and they turned around just totally shocked to see me upright, floating in my kayak, paddling away from the waterfall. And so, at that point, it was just, everybody was, there was a lot of relief, a lot of exhilaration, kind of a pretty emotional moment there, at the bottom of the waterfall. Doing something like this, it's a crazy experience for you, but you also put your friends through a really crazy experience, and just them watching you go and do this and being there and being positive and supporting it. But in the back of their minds, they too are thinking, well, shoot, what's going to go wrong? Are we going to see our buddy come out of this, or are we going to, not see him come out of it? So, in some ways, it's almost easier to be the athlete than the buddy on shore watching all of this go down. So,
I agree.
All
with
of
that.
us were just really relieved.
And I think that a lot of times the creative aspect of doing something like that, when you finally get to the point where you do the action and you do your gag and you come out at the bottom, that's when all of your support team is there saying, oh my God, we are really doing this, and this is really dangerous. I'm sure they knew that in the beginning, but now the reality sets in, especially if there's a pause and they're not sure if you're okay or not. Tell me something about your safety team. Are they paramedic trained? Are they lifesavers? Are they just guys that you trust your life with because you've done so much with them before?
Right. Well, these are I had the perfect crew there. I had a mix of both people that were medically trained, and then as well just incredibly knowledgeable river people that were there at the time. And, I couldn't have done it without the team that I had with me there that day. They are people I've paddled with for my whole life. and I totally trust them with my life. And so I had two people in the bottom in kayaks, one of which is a great team player. He went over and served in the military, and was over in Iraq for months and months and months. And very capable, skilled person. One of my best friends at the bottom. I had somebody on a rope at the top ready to rappel in behind the waterfall and extract me if need be. We had equipment, to stabilize me and support me in case something went wrong and I had a back injury. We had a helicopter a phone call away that, could have been there within minutes. It was, we really did all of our research and took all of the necessary precautions to make sure that in the event that something did go wrong, that we would be able to deal with it, as best as we could.
That's most excellent. Let me ask you now, you travel all over the world, obviously. Do you go on a search and look for new waterfalls to go over, or is this something that, you know what, I've got a world record here, I'm just not even going to think about that, I'm just going to enjoy where I am, the Columbia River, or wherever you happen to be, enjoy it, or are you constantly surveying new places to go over a waterfall in?
Well, kayaking, I've done it my whole life, and I absolutely love it. It's my passion and my drive, and it's, and I'll always do it, and I'll always run big waterfalls, whether I'll run something bigger than that or not. I kind of doubt, but what I'm planning right now is a big sailing action sport expedition. I'm planning a 3-year circumnavigation of the world in a sailboat, and if we pull it off, it'll be the longest non-petroleum sea voyage ever completed, and it's kind of in alignment with action sports. We'll be doing a lot of kayaking, a lot of surfing, kiteboarding. Water is definitely my niche and my forte, and so we are getting ready to launch the Adventure of a Lifetime this December, and so that's going to be the next 3 or 4 years of my life.
Is this well, of course this is your life. Now, how do you pay the bills?
Well, it's hit or miss, but luckily I've got some great people behind me that support me in my endeavors, and I'm able to pay the bills through kayaking. I do a lot of photography. I do a lot of filmmaking. We made a film called Dream Result, which includes that world record waterfall drop in it, and a whole year of traveling around and running waterfalls and just having an amazing adventure. And so I support myself through all of that, sponsorship, filmmaking, movies. If anybody wants to support us, dreamresultmovie.com, and they can have the full story of that waterfall descent as well. So that's kind of how I make ends meet.
Well, obviously very successfully so. Now, Tyler, how is your health? Have you had any major injuries from your kayaking, or just the typical little stuff that we all go through?
Yeah, knock on wood, just the typical little stuff. I think, I've been very, very fortunate with minimizing the injuries through kayaking, and, I think that is a lot of that's due to just, it's from the sounds of all of this and from watching that video of me going over Palouse, you wouldn't think that I was a very cautious kayaker, but, I really try to pick and choose the stuff that I do and the risks that I take and where and when I take those risks. And so, through a lot of just really making sure that I'm minimizing the variables in what I do and, taking as few of, risks I really can. I've been able to stay healthy and stay uninjured, which is a track record I really hope to keep going.
Right. So now you're going to circumnavigate. So you're going to be out on the ocean for 3 years?
Yep, it's going to be a 3 to 4 year project. There's a lot of mini adventures in there. We'll do some big Himalayan expeditions in our kayaks as well. I'm going to try to pull off the first source-to-sea descent of the entire Congo River.
Wow.
On that trip as well, which would be about a 3.5-month voyage, 4,700 kilometers of river, and some of the biggest whitewater on the planet. So that's going to be quite an expedition within an expedition. And, I'm just really stoked to be living life one adventure to the next.
No, that's so awesome. Are you going to I forgot my train of thoughts there. Sorry, it's all catacombs up here. Will you be staying in touch internet-wise with all of your fans while you're doing this?
Right, and so everybody will be able to follow along with us at worldsustain.com. It's going to be a really technologically advanced circumnavigation. We're going to be uploading our content, our video content, continuously throughout the expedition, and we're actually going to be having weekly webisodes launching. And so people not only would be able to go in and see stories and photos, but watch weekly webisodes of everything that's unfolding on board the ship and all of the adventures and excitement that we have along the way, the people we encounter, and it's an expedition in the truest sense. There's a lot of unknown out there, and it's just we can't really predict exactly what's going to happen, but I guarantee if people want to follow along, they can as well come and be involved in the adventure of a lifetime.
Will you be filming this as a documentary as well?
Right. It'll be a documentary. We're currently securing broadcast rights for networks, so it'll be on television. But the main thing that we're shooting for is a feature-length documentary at the end of it, and then really being able to show people exactly what we're up to through the website and the webisodes, and making it as interactive and fun to follow as we can. So that's kind of the premise of it. Nothing like this has really been done before, where people are actually able to follow an adventure as it unfolds, day by day. So we really hope to be able to invite a lot of viewers along to share in all that adventure and excitement with us.
Well, that's your middle name. Nothing's been like this has been done before. That's a long middle name for Tyler. Well, listen, Hardknocks is Hardknocks, and the boys. We're all going to follow you through that, Tyler, and we hope to stay in touch with you through your adventure. And it's nice to make a new friend, and it's so wonderful to speak to someone who does these major deals in life. One would think would be a daredevil or a suicidal move, but it's not that at all. You're a highly intelligent person with a thirst for life, and I say that tongue in cheek, who takes every safety measure to make these things work out. And it sounds like you're calling us from the Columbia River, and you're living life to its most. And we are just thrilled and privileged here at Hardknocks to have spoke with you and had you on the show. And thanks so much for taking time out.
Yeah, great. Thank you guys so much. And hoping we can keep touch and talk about some more adventures down the road.
We will.
Is that it?
That's it. Thanks, Tyler.
All right.
Have a good
Great.
run.
We'll see you guys.
Okay.
All right.
And now, here are the Averys.
I'm telling you, that was totally wicked. What
Yeah.
awesome. That's one of the major guests we've ever had on this show.
It's still just going over that edge, you're still saying, what the hell?
Yeah. The energy that's going on like that, when you're live doing something like that, it's so much different than if you're watching it at home on your couch and watching a video. All that sensory, and be able to hop on the back of his kayak and for him to take me through that was just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You just imagine what the craziest thing you've done, and,
it pales in comparison to what he's done.
Yeah, but still, you still have to have that moment of, there's commitment, no turning back, and drastic consequences if things go wrong if you're not on it. But to, like you said, harness that adrenaline on something that big, that's takes some mental power.
We just got some new numbers. We're up to 40,000 downloads on Hardknocks. We want to...
Well, isn't that special?
And we want to thank all of you for staying with us and downloading as much as you can and talking to your friends about Hardknocks. We have a very special guest coming up the next show, Mario Andretti. And again, Tyler.
They rushed him in here really quick.
I know.
Like,
Kids, try to keep it down. Yeah, it'll be pizza for everybody in a minute. We are just thrilled to have somebody like Tyler on this week. And last week we had Simona Di Silvestro, the Rookie of the Year for the Indianapolis 500. And now we have this racing legend, one of the greatest of all time, Mario Andretti, coming on the show next. So
this is huge.
This is huge for me. I'm going to be I don't know.
We'll have the drool bucket right next to
I
you.
just don't know how I'm going to get
Mario
drool. This is one of my toughest, but he's an Italian, and we got some Italian in us, and we'll make it work out. And hopefully Mikey will be back with us for the next show. I think he will be. And so Arnold can't get us on the chopper, so maybe we can just get the chopper going, and we'll see you all in the next show.
It's over there somewhere. Windows open. Jump out. Jump out.